Hi, Tim. Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you.
Great. I thank you for your time this morning. Before we get too deep into our interview, I just wanted to ask you, the last time I was in Nashville, I picked up this shirt. I'm not a big tourist, but I, can appreciate the Grand Ole Opry, so I picked up this shirt. I know you played at lots of venues in Nashville, I'm sure. Have you ever played this venue?
Boy, that sounds real familiar. Yeah, I spent 38 years working the Grand Ole Opry.
That's a little bit of time. Yeah, that's a little bit of time.
A little bit of time, yeah. So,
Well, let me bring our future audience into our interview here and kind of explain our funny here. Uh,
all
Tim
right.
Atwood is a musician extraordinaire who's played piano with some of the biggest names in country music, almost all of them, really. I mean, in that span of time, I'm sure. In fact, he's played on the Grand Ole Opry stage over 8,500 times, which is just unthinkable. 8,500 times. In the last couple of years, he's transitioned to the center stage of the Opry to do his own shows there on that stage and to play for audiences around the world. And Tim, I just really thank you for your time this morning.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always good to talk to someone who appreciates the Opry.
Absolutely, I really do. It's sacred ground, is in my mind. It's sacred ground. Um, so, in 2019, you celebrated 50 years in country music. I want to congratulate you because that's just an amazing feat. In any career in this world, to be with something for 50 years like that. But I also I was wondering, is it? Can you even imagine that 50 years have gone by since your first performances in East Peoria, Illinois, with the Harris family?
I, it's it's like I said, I've been living a dream. Playing music for professionally since I was a kid, like I said, about 13 years old, and to do all the different things I've got to do and have the opportunities. It even baffles me sometimes how I became so lucky and so blessed. But I really love what I do, and I just I'm just blessed. That's all I can say.
Yeah, yeah, you certainly are. You certainly are. Someone told me once that you should work to live and not live to work. And it's like, boy, when you can go into your job every day and love what you do, and we all have to work to make a living, to love what you do, it doesn't feel like work, does it?
No. Somebody told me one time, find something that you would do for free and make that your job.
Oh,
And that's kind of it would never seem like work. It never seems like work to me. I just enjoy what I do so much, and so thankful to get to do
absolutely. I love that thought. That thought is great. I'm going to look for my free work right after I'm done here because that's I love that.
it.
I love that philosophy. I really do. And as you
That's
know,
it.
honestly, I've been very blessed too that I've stayed
Yeah.
close to music my whole life. So um, while I'm not doing it as a professional career, it is my career in my life. I'm not on
Right.
TV or I'm not on the stage, but it's my life in many many ways. So I've been very blessed also. So.
Yeah.
Um, knowing
Cool.
that you grew up in Illinois, I have to tell you, I'm calling from the suburbs of Chicago, and I was wondering if you had any like favorite memories when you were growing up in Illinois, maybe traveling to Chicago, anything that stands out growing up, maybe a trip to Chicago here and there.
All right. I'm going to tell you my one Chicago story that when I was in junior high for our class field trip or whatever, we went to Chicago, went to the museums, and we went to Old Town. That was when the hippies were really big, and they took us to Old Town.
Yeah,
And I have never forgotten it. I think I was in eighth grade, and that was a big deal to get to go to Chicago in the first place. And the museums were great. But at my age, you're right around 13, 14, and you're seeing all these hippies and the tie dyes and the beads. And I went, those people are cool.
yeah, I'm sure, and like you said, at that age to see that and walk around and say, wow, this is something.
Yeah,
Oh, and there's a
yeah,
museum too,
yeah,
as a side.
yeah.
There's also a museum. So no, that's
That's right.
that's um how, how old were you when you decided to leave East Peoria and make your way towards Nashville?
Well, I was 20 years old. I was already married, and my my wife at the time and my mother and father-in-law, we were going to Florida for a trip. And we drove through Nashville, and Fair and Young had a club here called Fair and Young Celebrity Ballroom.
Okay.
And I asked if I could sit in and play with the band, and I got up and I played 3 or 4 songs. And when I got done, Fair and Young motioned me to come over, and he was sitting in the VIP section of his club. It was elevated, you know. He waved me over, and I walked over and said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Son, do you live here?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Well, you need to move here as soon as you can because we don't have any piano players."
Wow.
And when I got off of vacation, I went back home. I sold my house, and that was in July. By the end of August, I had moved to Nashville. I knew 2 people in Nashville. Just took a big leap of faith. So I've been in Nashville since I was 20 years old.
Wow. That's really an amazing story. And, you know, sometimes you think about what could have been, you know, what would be if you didn't take that leap of faith. It's hard in life to take a leap of faith like that and to leave your hometown, the comfort of your hometown. And boy, so glad you did. You know, and there's a lot of people out there who are glad you did too, I'm sure. And yourself, of course.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, how did it come about that you were hired to play with the Grand Ole Opry? If I understand correct, that was, you know, that didn't begin immediately because you got there and you did some gigs probably. And how did that come about?
Well, I moved to Nashville, like I said, in the late August in 1976, and there was a country singer named Mel Street, and his guitar player and I had played shows and gigs and stuff back in Illinois together. He's from around Bloomington, Illinois.
Okay.
And so he asked me then, you know, if I would come out and go on the road with Mel just for a day, just for me to get an experience of being on the road with a star, you know. And I went to work with Mel, and I was there. Like I said, I had moved to Nashville, and 2 weeks later, I had a job with Mel Street. 6 weeks later, I worked with Jim Ed Brown and Helen Cornelius for 3 years, and then I went out for a brief stint with Lynn Anderson on the road. But while I was with Jim Ed, Jerry Whitehurst was the music director of the TV show Nashville on the Road. And Jerry heard me play and stuff like that. And he asked me, he said, "If you'll get off the road, anything I can't do or don't want to do, I'll call you first if you'll get off the road." Wow. So I left Lynn Anderson and stayed home. And then Jerry started calling me anytime when he was too busy to work the Opry or Hee Haw or Nashville Now, any of those TV shows, that good old Nashville music, he would send me in. I mean, if maybe he had 2 or 3 things going at once, and he would call me to do whatever else he wasn't doing. And so that's how I ended up on the stage at the Opry. And like I said, it's just mind-boggling to me that I've been so lucky and fortunate to do what I've always wanted to do. Like I said, I am living a dream.
Yeah, that's really something. And I know we spoke a little bit before our interview about this, but I'm going to bring it up for our audience. You know, when you think about the number of times you played on that stage, over 8,500 times in 38 years, is it just still as special to walk on that stage in recent years of your career there and now as a performer of your own show as it was when you started?
You know what? It's still cool to walk out there. It is a humbling thing. It really is. I mean, even like I said, working with the Roy Cuffs and Minnie Pearls and people like that, and to today's stars, I mean, there is a different vibe to it than when I first got to the Opry. I mean, you could not wait to get there because it was so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, there was always something going on backstage or whatever. And in this case, now when I walk out there, I walk out as an artist. And it's got a different vibe for me. Rather than being somebody's sideman, I get to go out front, entertain, and use the things that I learned from watching the Porter Wagners and the Bill Andersons and G.D. Seeley's and people like that. Watch them entertain. I learned how to do it. Now I feel like I'm kind of keeping that tradition alive, but it's still humbling.
I can only imagine that feeling of all those years being there with all these artists and seeing what they did and seeing how the audience interacted with them and how they interacted with the audience. And then to say, well, now I get to try this from my angle, from all the things. It's like being a comedian and watching all the other comedians in the audience, and then going up there and doing it yourself and just taking a little bit of everything and making it your own too. Of course, making it your
That's
own.
right.
But the little
Yeah.
bits and pieces that you saw, what worked for the audience, what made them laugh, what made them, stand up and cheer, and what was it, so it's kind of, you got a chance to see that from the best seat in the house, I think, and then do it
Oh
yourself.
yeah. There were some funny things. I mean, I remember working one night, and Anna Nicole Smith was at the Opry that night.
Okay.
And so she decided she was going to dance with the square dancers. And she had on one of those wraparound skirts. And anyhow, she started twirling, and I looked over and I saw a gold lame thong. And I thought, I'll bet you Roy Acuff is spinning in his grave right now. But things like that, I mean, you only get so many of those kind of things happening.
Yeah. And that's what makes it fun to tell the stories,
Well, that's like with Jeannie Seely. Seely and I have been friends for years. We're getting ready to do a duet album project. But I had only been with the Opry staff for probably, I don't know, maybe a year or two. But Seely and I were pretty good friends. And she's singing this song, and we're rocking. I mean, we're just wearing it out. And I've got this piano solo, and I'm all up into it, just wearing it out, thinking I'm just going to impress everybody. She leans down and whispers in my ear, Atwood, if you make love as good as you play piano, you are awesome. I forgot what key we were in. I forgot what song we were doing. And I told my wife, Roxanne, I told that story. And of course, when the next time she saw Jeannie, Roxanne said, Jeannie, he's a better piano player.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to play after that either. I think, well.
No, I lost it, man. I just thought, oh my gosh. So, yeah, getting stories like that, you don't get a lot of those, but those are two of my favorites.
Have you ever, or maybe you've already done this and I'm not aware, but have you ever thought of writing this all down in a book and sharing it with your fans? Maybe you've already done that. I'm not sure.
We have not done it yet, but we're actually talking about doing that. After being here for 44 years, I've got stories. I've got road stories. I've got backstage at the Opry stories, and I really would like to be able to have a book out. We're concentrating right now on a new CD coming out, but I think that may be the next step, is to try to start writing a book. And my wife is an incredible writer. She's a great writer. She wrote Jim Ed Brown's wife, Becky Brown's book, and she's fixing to write Jeannie Seely's book. So whenever I can get her away from those people, maybe she can write one for me.
There you go. Well, it's awesome. You have a co-writer right in the house right there. Co-writer to work on it. Can't ask for more than that. That's great. And because and I know that I've heard that you can tell quite the road story, that you have audiences laughing, and that's a big part of your entertainment, that you can make them laugh and tell these stories. So I would love to read a book like that, because you could tell so many anecdotes. It doesn't have to be page after page of tiny print where you're telling stories about, you would have so much to tell it, and you'd have people laughing the whole way through. They wouldn't be able to put the book down. So I encourage you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Minnie Pearl was another one that was kind of like into that kind of stuff. She used to come out on stage, like I said, this is another one of those little added up stories, but she would come out on stage, and I was about 26, I guess. I had a big full beard, and she would come out on stage, and she'd go, "Look at him, girls, ain't he purty?" And I got embarrassed. I mean, I would just blush, But she would walk over to the piano, and she would grab me by the face and kiss me right on the lips. And then she would turn around to the audience and go, "You know how it is, girls. You don't mind going through a little brush to get to a picnic." So, yeah, you're right. I probably should do a book.
you know, you could, the way that it's so easy to write it, it would write itself. You'd sit down
Yeah.
and you wouldn't be able to put the pen down because story after story, if we sat here all day, you'd have 80 stories and we would just be turning the corner, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, so that's what's so neat about it. Some people, you know, can get very much into the technical side of the career and what they use to play on it. You would just have story after story and the book would
Yeah.
write itself. It would write itself.
Yeah.
So.
I hope we get to do that. That may be a 2020 or 2021 project. That may be. I think that's a great idea, especially not being able to go anywhere right now. That now would be a prime time to get started, wouldn't it?
You could write down a bunch of topics. You know, you could make a list. You probably do it in 5 minutes. You probably have 80 things you want to talk about, and then you just pick away at them a little bit each day, and you write that story, write this story. You'd be done.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, I'm personally looking forward to that because I would just love to read something like that from you. I can only imagine all the lives that you've touched and all the people who have touched your life. I just can only imagine all that's up here to be able to share. So.
Well, I think we will do that. I'll just make it. I'll put that on the to-do list.
There you go. There you go. When you started playing at the Grand Ole Opry, I believe it had already been moved over to its current location, right, from the Ryman. It's already been like 74 was when that happened. And I think maybe you
Right.
started in 82. Is that about right?
I started. I played the Opry in 1976. They had just been moved
Oh,
to the
you
new
did in
Opry House.
76. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So just a couple years, yeah, after the transition.
Yeah. The first time I ever worked the Ryman Auditorium, they had not reopened it. They had closed the Ryman, and everything was at the new Opry House. But they were taping a TV show in there, and I got called to do a TV show with Kitty Wells and Johnny Wright. And so we taped this TV show. Like I said, they just had it set up as a TV studio. There wasn't an audience. We just taping a TV show. I finished that show, and Jerry Whitehurst, who was the band leader on Nashville Now, called me and said, "Son, I need you to get out here. You know, I'm sick. I need to go home." So I finished. The first time I worked the Ryman was with Kitty Wells doing a TV show. I left the Ryman and I went up to the Gaslight Studios at Opryland and did Nashville Now. I didn't have time to rehearse. I just had to walk in. They put a number music chart in front of me, and I mean the red light came on. So I had no chance to rehearse, nothing like that. I just had to sit down and play.
Wow.
But that's how fast things were moving. And but I mean, it makes you think on your feet when you just get pulled into a situation. Being able to pull that off. I mean, you don't worry about it at the time, but when you're done, you're just rattled because you just went through all that. But it was, like I said, that was my first Ryman experience was with Kitty Wells, which I think is very cool.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's a great first story to be able to, the first time there to be there with her. Amazing. And do they, I thought I read about this, but I'm not sure. Do they still do like a 3-month sabbatical where they kind of go back into the Ryman and do shows there, the Grand Ole Opry?
Yeah. Usually it's November till February. They'll be down there November, December, January, and February, and then they move back in March, usually, either February or March. But they did that. A lot of the reason they used the Opry House for, like, the Rockettes would be doing their holiday shows and stuff like that. Okay. So the Rockettes would take over the Opry House, and the Opry would go to the Ryman. And acoustically, that's probably one of the best venues I've ever played acoustically. The Ryman Auditorium, you can stand on stage and sing, and without any microphones, you can hear your voice all the way through that building. That's probably the most acoustic stage that I've ever seen that was that good. I mean, I played a lot of stage in a lot of places, but there's nothing like the Ryman.
Yeah, I've only been there to the Ryman once, and it was for Christian Country Music Awards. It was a live taping of that, and we had just been in town, and I always look for musical things to do in the towns, and of course, there's not a shortage of things to do in Nashville related to music. So we just bought tickets that morning to be part of that audience, and I remember June Carter Cash being up on that stage to accept an award on behalf of Johnny, who I believe had already passed away at that point. And and it was just amazing to just be in that room. I mean, I think Colin Ray was there. I think the Christian band Sela was there. And so it was like really something to be in that space for anything related to music, you know, just to sit there and have those bands playing and just a sacred space.
Do you remember what year that was?
You know, I wish I could. I mean, I would put it
Because I used to play those Christian Country Music Award shows,
okay.
and I remember I did the one I did at the Ryman. I can't remember how many years ago it's been, but I remember uh, I was actually just the piano player for that show at the Ryman. The next year they moved to another venue, but then I became band leader. I was like the music director for
Wow.
about 9 years for the Inspirational Country Music Awards. Yeah, but I do remember working the Ryman.
So I wonder if maybe that was the year, you know, the year you had done the Ryman show. Colin Ray was on stage, and I wish I could remember more about it, but
Yeah,
I just it was powerful for me, and we may have crossed paths along the lines of that. How about that?
I bet we did.
You know, I'm not much of you know, taking professional pictures when I go somewhere, like, you know, coming off the rock and roller coaster in Disney or something. I'm not wanting to have my picture screaming, you know. I'm not much to do that, you know. I'm not much of a tourist. I use my own camera, you know. But at the Grand Ole Opry, you know, you could take that picture on the center stage circle. I'm
Right.
sorry that I can't get my shapes right this morning, but on the center stage circle that was taken out of the stage at the Ryman, correct? I mean, it was moved and transported over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm going to share this picture with you. Is my video going okay?
I haven't seen you for the past 30 minutes.
Oh, no.
I'm looking at a light.
Oh, no.
I know that's where I'm supposed to be looking at.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, it's working well on this side. I'm sorry that maybe it's a better thing. You don't have to look my ugly mug this morning. So maybe it's better for you, you know. But anyways, I did show. At least I showed the audience this picture that they'll see my family at the Grand Ole Opry. And the only reason I was going to show you that picture, I mean, it seems like a touristy thing to say, but I really, truly, I've never had an experience like that on that stage, to stand there in that center circle. It meant more than anything in a traveling, you know, going somewhere, to stand there and know all the people. I was just going in my head, this person must have stood there, that much, you know, that person must have stood there. And it gives me a chill just to think about it. So I just want you to know from a distance, it's more than just you and I sitting here talking about, oh, you played at the Grand Ole Opry 8,500. I mean, I was on that stage for that one moment, and I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. So, you know, so it's just, I can so appreciate what you've been, and I'm very envious, and we're very happy for you that you've been able to do that. I always just tell, you know, I know when we went on the tour, they were showing us all those dressing rooms. They said, well, this is the room that Paul McCartney prefers, you know. So I did my, if A equals B and B equals C, then A must equal C. So I said, well, if Paul McCartney has a dressing room he likes, he's obviously done a couple shows there. So I tell people, I say, well, I've shared the stage with Paul McCartney, just, you know, not at the same time, you know. So now I could say that I've shared the stage with Tim Atwood, and I'm catching up with him on number of times that I've been in that stage. How's that? I only have 8,499 to go. So you know, but awesome. I just I so can appreciate that that experience of just walking on that stage and being there and being around all the people that you've seen come and go in their careers, the beginnings of careers, the endings of careers. And it probably, sometimes those careers probably seem like a snap of the fingers, that you can remember their first show and you can remember their last show.
Right. Yeah, I remember things. One of the sad things I remember, I think, when Wilma Lee Cooper, she was on stage, and we were at the Ryman at that point. It was during the winter. And while she was singing, she actually had a stroke while she was singing, and they had to come and get her. But things like that, you know, I mean, you hate to see it. I remember Jeannie Pruitt came out one night, and as the curtain went up, she fainted as the curtain was going up, so they had to drop the curtain. So backstage things like that, you don't want to remember them, but at the same time, you can't forget them.
Right.
Is what happens.
Right.
But yeah, that I've seen, like I said, it was just Johnny Russell was a big favorite of mine. I always loved Johnny Russell because I love the fact he could tell a story, he could tell a joke, and then he could turn around and sing a song that would just make you cry. And he was suffering with diabetes, and they'd amputated both of his legs. And the first thing he asked us, I mean, Roxanne and I went to visit him. He said, "Man, do you think they'll let me back on stage in a wheelchair?" I mean,
Wow.
that's love for
Yes.
your business and your fellow performers and that building. And anyhow, Johnny was a great guy. But like I said, little things like that, you just go, I'm blessed to have had, even though it was not really a glorious thing, but to be able to be a person and to be there and be a shoulder to lean on.
Well, I truly do feel like it was a glorious thing. I really respect all that you've done there, and I know that people who know you and all of the you're just as much of a superstar as anybody who's ever walked on that stage. And to the people that that have come and gone, that I know how much they have had to lean on you over the years to enjoy your playing, and they probably feel comfortable coming back. They say, I know he's got our back. He's been on this stage. I've seen him the last 20 shows I did. Don't worry about that keyboard. Don't worry about that piano player. You know what I mean? And you've given them that. So and then just going back to what you said about Johnny, I've heard that about you. I've read in materials that people say that about you. You can make them laugh, and then you could sing a touching song that will make them cry. So I mean,
Yeah.
of your own music. So I mean, you followed in the footsteps of the greats, and you could do the same thing. You have that same powers, is what I've heard. So
Well, that's a high compliment. Um, but like I said, all that training of watching these people do it, I do. I love telling a joke. I would go to the Opry every Friday night and every Saturday night, and I would have two jokes, and I would go to Jimmy Dickens' room, and I would tell Jimmy Dickens the joke. And if he laughed at either one of them, then I would go find Porter Wagner. He's another joke.
uh-huh.
I would tell Porter. And then I would go find Bill Anderson and Jeannie Seeley. And everybody knew that I loved the joke. So after 2 hours of being at the Opry, I've told this joke to 4 people. I'm starting to walk out the door, and somebody goes, "Hey, Atwood, come here. I got this great joke." And they start telling me, I went, "I started that 2 hours ago. You're way behind on the curve." That's how, I mean, I did. I loved going to Jimmy Dickens. Or if you could make Jimmy Dickens laugh, you could tell a joke. And I made him laugh.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. I would imagine with all the jokesters around there and telling, physically telling jokes, there had to be some practical jokes played once in a while. I have to think. Can you think of any kind of a practical joke? You walk out to your keyboard and someone's done something to your bench or something. Any practical jokes you guys just play at each other?
Well, there was a drummer at the Opry, Harold Weekly. And he was the first staff drummer at the Grand Ole Opry when they actually put together a staff band at the Opry House. Well, Harold and Weldon Myrick, great steel player, played on many, many hits, a lot of Connie Smith stuff. Anyhow, Weldon was good-natured fun. He went out and put one of those whistle bombs on Harold's truck, on his van. So when Harold started his car up that night, here's that whistle bomb going on. So Harold gets mad, he gets out, and he does whatever he needs to do. So Harold goes home, and that night he drills a hole in the hood of this brand new van.
Oh no!
And put a chain around it. And the next night he came back, that chain was on there. Weldon had brought bolt cutters. So he clipped the chain, put the whistle bomb on, and then put the chain back with a lock that Harold didn't have a key for.
Oh no!
So you got that going on, and Harold had just bought this at the time. It had to be, I don't know, mid '80s. Harold bought this beautiful $40,000 customized van, and Weldon Myrick took a picture of it and put it on the cover of Wheels and Deals for $5,000. So Harold's phone rang off. You talk about blowing up a phone.
Right.
But that's just good-natured fun. That's what we did back in the day. It was fun. You couldn't wait to get there. It was all about family and enjoying each other and good ribbon stuff,
Yeah. That's so neat. And like we said before, just being able to work in a job you enjoyed that much. They were all family. They really were. All those people
Yeah,
that
they were. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit and ask you if maybe you could tell us a little bit about the country music cruise that you've been doing the last several years.
Oh my gosh. That's some of the most fun I've ever had with my clothes on. We've done it for the past 5 years, and they postponed the 2021 until November. So about 14 months from now, I'll be on a cruise, uh, and it's great because there's like probably 20 major acts, and the cruise is specifically for the people who love music.
Right.
Music starts at 9 in the morning, and I think we close out. I do a dueling piano thing with a girl from Illinois, Chrissy Sparks. She and I do a dueling piano thing, and we play till 1 in the morning. So from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock, there's something going on. There's songwriters, there's shows, there's interviews, there's games, and I mean, it's probably that's one of the highlights of my year. I look forward to that every year. I'm really going to miss it in January this year, but it just gives me one thing to look forward to in November next year because
That's true. That's true.
if you've never been, it's worth the time and the money to go on that cruise.
Do you get any sleep, you know, as a fan or as a performer? Does anybody get any sleep on that cruise? I mean, if it's going that long in the day, wow.
Well, you know what though? It's amazing because I remember one night we left the lounge, the dueling piano thing. We didn't end till like 1:30, and I walked down the hallway and I heard this group, and I went down there and there's Jimmy Fortune and a bunch of other bluegrass people sitting there playing bluegrass music. It wasn't for the public. It was just like they didn't get enough picking that day, so they decided they would continue on. But little impromptu setups like that, I mean, you only get those once in a lifetime. You know, that's only going to happen one time. You can't schedule it to make it work. It's just a happening, you know.
Right, right. Do you ever get the opportunity to do dueling pianos outside of the cruise? Is that something you look forward to? Do you ever do dueling pianos in Nashville with anybody, or does that opportunity come up?
Chrissy and I have done it, I don't know, a couple times a year since we started doing it. We've done it in Nashville. We actually did it in Champaign, Illinois one night.
Okay.
And but we don't do it a lot.
Yeah.
But when we get the opportunity, she's an incredible player and a gifted singer, and we work so well together. And I always look forward to working with her. And that's another disappointment for January for me. I won't be able to see her until next November. But she's incredible. She really is, and it just makes it so much fun. And I would encourage everyone to go on that cruise at least once.
I guess that makes it all the more special that it's a once a year thing that you do the dueling pianos for the most part, you know, and then you look forward to it because it's not something you get so used to that it's, you know, becomes a habit. It's something you get to look forward to, you know.
Right. Well, it's I just enjoy. First of all, I'm a beach nut. I love the beach and the sun and the surf, and but being able to do it with somebody. And I had only known when I called Chrissy, they called me about first time we did this. They called me and said, "Hey, we want you to do a dueling piano thing on this country music cruise." And I said, "Well, who am I going to be working with?" They said, "Well, you got to find your other dueling partner, whoever you want." I met Chrissy 2 weeks before that, played a show in Champaign, Illinois. She had a band. And I called her, I said, and she's also a school teacher. And she says, I said, "You want to go on this cruise? They're going to pay us to go on this cruise. And this, that, and the other." And she said, "Well, okay." I had only known her 2 weeks. We got together for a half an hour and basically sat there and talked. I'm going to do this. While I'm doing this, you do this. We just discussed it. And the first night, little rough. By the second night, you would have thought we'd been doing it our whole lives. That's how in tune we are with each other. She knows what I'm going to do. I know what she's going to do. So it was really cool. And it ended up, like I said, for 5 years in a row, they kept having us back. And I'm just, like I said, man, I'm living on cloud nine. Life is good at little Atwood would.
That's so great. That's so awesome. So are you self-taught on piano? Did you take lessons for many years? How did this all, the piano part of your life happen?
Well, I actually started when I was 6 years old. I wanted to be a drummer, and so I became a drummer. And the gospel group, the Harris family,
Yeah.
they said, we'd give you a job. They said, can you play bass? And of course, I said, well, yeah, because I taught myself drums, I taught myself guitar, bass, mandolin, some banjo. But when I discovered the piano, I went, oh, wow, this is my instrument. It's all black and white. I can see it. It all makes sense.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And the piano player with the Harris family, he showed me how to do that little Floyd Kramer bent note thing that he did. And a year later, I had his job. I didn't have a piano at my house, but I was in high school band. And in all the practice rooms, there were pianos. So while everybody else went to lunch, I would go in one of those rooms and I taught myself to play. And we were at a square dance thing. My dad used to play some square dances, and there was a piano there. And I sat down and started playing rhythm. He had no clue that I even knew anything about a piano. So he went out and bought this old upright piano for like 25 bucks. And then I would take a record player needle and I'd put it on there, like the behind closed doors. I'd put it on and I would hear it and I would, do it. I'd do this for hours to the point where my ear got so trained. I mean, I can hear something now. I know what you're doing. So I've never had any lessons in piano whatsoever,
Yeah.
or guitar, or anything. It's just a God-given talent. It's a gift, and I'm very thankful for it.
I went to school to be a music teacher, a music education, but I went to school for band directing, and I didn't end up doing that, directing bands, but I ended up getting into a little bit of theater, a little bit of teaching some music lessons and whatnot. But I kind of learned piano the same way. Same thing, I would get a pass out of my classes when I had some classes that the work seemed to be easier than other classes, and I would ask for a pass when I was done with my homework, and they'd send me up to the practice rooms, and I would I read music, but I didn't know anything about the piano. And I just would sit
Right.
there and I just start playing chords. And it's helped me today. I talk to so many people that read music that say they can't do what somehow I figured out how to do, which makes me feel like, oh, wow, because I can't do left hand and right hand piano when I'm looking at music. So I look at the
Right.
chords. I take the chords and I see it says a D chord and a G chord and that's how I play. And the other day, someone said to me, one of my students said to me, have you been playing your whole life? It was the biggest compliment because I said, no, I said, I taught myself how to do this. And so I could appreciate what you're saying about that. It's like, you just kind of sit there and you just keep listening and keep playing and it just kind of happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't read music. Matter of fact, just the thought of reading a grand staff, bass and treble clef, I don't think I could mentally. I can't even fathom that idea.
Uh-huh.
But if you, like I said, if you want to play it for me, I can find those notes. I mean, like I can hear them and I know where they're at after years. I mean, it takes me a little bit sometimes if something's a little difficult, but at the same time, there's a satisfaction in being able to turn and pull that off. Doing that at the Opry was a big thing. I mean, they would send us songs like on a Thursday, and then Friday night we had to go and play them just like it was on the record. So you would spend, a couple of hours making sure you got all the parts right. There was no reading involved; it was just all by ear. And I depend. Somebody asked Chet Atkins, said, "Can you read music?" He said, "Not enough to hurt my playing."
So Tim, I teach vocal lessons, on the side. One of the many things I just do a lot of different things in music, and I enjoy teaching so much. And my students sometimes, and I work with teenagers and adults, young adults, and all the whole gamut of people at different levels of interest in music. And people seem to get hung up on keeping things in the same key that the original artist performed it in.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, you know what? In real life, it happens every day in the recording world or in the live world of live performances that people will maybe have a bad day singing and they'll be like, oh, my throat hurts or I'm just not feeling it. And they tell the band on the spot, can you take it down a half step? Can you take it down a step? Can you take it down to the key of to B flat or something? Can
Right.
you maybe speak on that a little bit? Because I'm sure it's happened in your many performances where someone would just kind of throw you a curveball and you had to be just like, okay, boom, 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 just kind of.
Right. Yeah, that happens a lot. I mean, it was if somebody's not feeling well, like you said, and they'll drop a key or whatever. But that's the beauty to me of the Nashville number system. You're one number, like the number one, say you're in the key of C, and then four would be F because that's four steps up. Anyhow, if the song is in C and they say, look, we need to do this in B flat, that number chart automatically, you can start in B flat and it's fine. It doesn't change anything that you're doing other than the fact you may have dropped it a step or whatever.
Right.
But that was the beauty of the number system. But that, yeah, I used to get that a lot. The one person that really knocked me out, Hank Lachlan, had a song called "Send Me the Pillow You Dream On," and most everybody I worked with at the Opry didn't change their keys. Very seldom would they do it until they had to. Once they did, it was. But Hank Lachlan, even at 80 years old, was still singing "Danny Boy" in the key of E flat. I mean,
yeah,
what an amazing voice, and
yeah.
I mean, it was just. You know, but yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, you got to be prepared, be ready to go. I mean, you know, that's what it is.
Right, right. It's I know it has to happen more often than people realize when they're, people young singers who think, oh, I have to sing in the same key as the
Yeah.
recording, and it definitely is. And sometimes I've been able to convince people, and it's like opens a whole new world for them. They're trying to sing in this horrible key that's just like
Oh
they're
yeah.
straining, and they're like, oh, this song doesn't work for me. And I'm like, no, don't give up on that song, because you can make it work. What we just have to do is find you a lower recording, and all of a sudden it opens a whole new world for them.
Right.
So it's always neat to see that happen. So
It is.
So besides the Grand Ole Opry stage, any favorite places to play as you travel, the country and the world doing shows like that, like a venue that just, whenever you walk in, I'm sure there's lots of them, but anything that stands out?
You know, there is a venue, and I worked it back in 1977 that I still enjoy, and it's the Wheeling Jamboree,
I
the
was going to talk
Capitol
about that. I'm
Theater.
glad you brought that up. Yes.
Yeah, there's something about that building that I really like. They made me a member of the Wheeling Jamboree, and
2018, right? Is that right?
yes, yes,
Yep.
yes. So that was a very cool thing for me. But there is something about that building that, like I said, working in 1977 with Jim Ed Brown as a piano player for him, and then now to be a member as an artist of the Wheeling Jamboree, it's truly an honor, and I still get goosebumps when I play that stage.
That's such a neat thing. And I read about the history. I mean, going back to the 30s, they say is like when the first time, it was the second, and I didn't know anything about it. I just tried to learn a little bit more about it, knowing that you were a member. I tried to learn a little more, and I read that I think it was like 1933 where the first broadcasts were taking place, and it was second only to the Grand Ole Opry radio broadcast.
Right, right, yeah. There's pictures of the when it was really hopping, just like the Opry at the Ryman. You see those pictures where there's people always stretched around the block. It was that way even in the 70s when I was with Jim Ed. It was like that. I mean, just amazing crowds, and they've got their tradition. Everybody brings a cowbell,
Oh, okay.
and instead of applause, they'll all ring their cowbells. And the reason that started, this is a really interesting story, but families would leave to go and see the Wheeling Jamboree live, and they would ring their cowbell, and then the people at home would go, "Well, Bob and Martha made it. I heard their cowbell over on the radio." But so we have that going on. So that was, yeah, just a really cool place, cool venue.
So, I mean, when you think about that, the two biggest venues for country music, when you think about the fact that they had been going since, and even like they say back to the 20s, people were doing things, but the 30s is kind of when it started to really take place on
Right.
the radio. But boy, the history of that, two of the most historic venues and organizations in country music history, and you're part of both of them. and you're a part of both of them.
Yeah.
You belong. You're in both those families.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's like I said, I'm honored and blessed and humbled all at the same time. I mean, uh, like I said, just getting to do what I do, even having interviews like this, it's still cool to me, you know.
Yeah.
I enjoy sharing my life and hoping other people get some inspiration out of it.
There's no doubt that someone listening and watching this interview would get inspiration because of all that you've experienced. I'm inspired because I feel like as I interview people, I kind of get to walk in their shoes for a brief moment and just try to put myself in their shoes for a moment and say, wow, what an amazing experience that you've had in so many years.
Yeah.
So I always enjoy this part of the, so, but yeah, I did read about that, the Wheeling Jamboree, and just amazing story too. Another amazing story in country music. So, something else for the book, right? Something else for the book.
You know what? Whenever you mentioned that, I thought, man, I never even gave that a thought. The Opry and then Wheeling Jamboree, like you said, two of the man. How lucky am I?
Right, right. So, I know that I understand this weekend's a big weekend because you're being given the 2020. I hate to even use that year. I hate to say that name, the 2020, because it's been such a unique year. But this is the golden silver lining moment of the year. This is a great thing to celebrate. That this is the reason why you'll be able to forget about all the crazy things that have happened in 2020, because you can remember 2020 as the year that you got a Lifetime Achievement Award. The Josie Awards. So maybe, it sounds to me like it's like one of the biggest, if not the biggest honor in independent music, to be given to someone in the independent music world. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, the Josie Music Awards.
Yeah, we were supposed to have made it last year, and there was a lot of conflict, and so we didn't get there. But they wanted us to come back this year and accept the award. So, what an honor, and especially lifetime achievement. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, I can't say enough nice things and good things about having the opportunity to receive that award.
Yeah, yeah, and I was.
Now, I do have one other award I'm proud of. Can I
Okay,
tell you that?
all right.
This is a Telly Award. It's kind of like an Emmy or for TV or for Oscars. It's the same kind of thing. And we won this. Roxanne, my wife, got one for producing, and I got one for playing and singing. We were up against 12,000 entries,
Wow.
and we won the Telly Award. So that's kind of a big thing. And I told Roxanne, I said, we're getting the Josie Award, we got a Telly Award. I guess our next endeavor would be to build a mantle.
Yeah, right. That's awesome, and it's not too far from your side right there. It's you're not letting that out of your sight, are you? I mean, that's a big honor.
It's like my American Express card. I don't go anywhere without it.
That's a great honor. 12,000 other nominees. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
congratulations
cool.
on that. That's just really, just
Thank
all
you.
the things that, and I know I could tell just from, speaking with you this morning, you don't take any of this lightly. It's something that you're very humble about it. You're very humble about it, and that shows. But boy, inside you have to just feel so good about that. And it's so interesting how humble you are able to be about it. I really admire that.
Well, I'm just thankful that I get to do what I do, and like I said, I try to bring as much happiness and joy and thoughtfulness and kindness as I can to everybody, because everybody has done that for me. Everybody I've run across on the road and things like that, everybody has been so kind, and you repay kindness with kindness. And I'm blessed, and I don't ever want to forget where I came from, my roots, and I'm just, like I said, I'm just blessed in every way possible, and I'm thankful each and every day.
Certainly. I So I believe your last, switching gears for a moment here, I believe your last full-length album was Living the Dream, right? Which is what you're doing. You're living the dream, so it's easy to
Right.
label that album, right?
Yep,
And that was in 2018, is that right?
that's right.
Approximately, yeah. Okay, so that's the last full-length album. And I believe you said something before that you're working on new music, something on the way now that you're working on.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this project. Um, this will be my fourth CD since I left the Opry in 2014. And I'm so excited about this one. Uh, I try not to record songs that, if they happen to hit, I wouldn't mind singing 20 years from now. You know what I mean? Because you're always going to have to do that hit, whatever. But this album in particular has got such a wide variety of stuff. I've got a song that goes from nothing but piano vocals to piano guitar and cajon, and then I go all up to a steel and fiddle and harmonica. Charlie McCoy played on this album. Country Music Hall of Fame member playing harmonica for me on my CD. Well, I mean, I just can't believe it myself.
Right.
And then I went all the way up, and actually, we put a horn section on a couple of these songs. I like variety. I like country music. I like old rock and roll music. I love Southern gospel. I love, all kinds of music, jazz. So I've got a little flavor of just about everything in there. And I also have to have some sort of humorous little song in there because there's always a humor song.
Yeah.
And but like I said, I'm so excited to get this thing out because it is by far the best thing that I've ever done. And I wouldn't mind singing any of those songs for the rest of my life if I had to. I think it would be great because they're just great songs. There's something for everybody. They say variety is the spice of life. My grandpa even told me one time, he said, not everybody in law likes the same things. Otherwise, everybody'd be after your grandmother.
Oh, that's great. That is awesome. So I got to recover from that. That was good. That was so. Where do I go from there? That was good. That was really good. So with an album that has such a variety, and like you said, you could play the songs forever. You don't. There are a lot of artists who record an album and they get a song on the radio that maybe they didn't like so much, but the label thought it was good, and they're stuck playing it for the rest of their life. And some bands will even go so far as to not play it, even though it's the song that put them on the map. They will go so far as to not play that song because it just has a negative feeling to them. They don't like it.
Yeah.
So it's so refreshing to hear you say that. Any song on that album, I would love to play it for years.
Yeah, I always gave that consideration because I remember working with artists hating whatever song that put them on top. Man, I hate to sing that again. I hate to do that. And I thought, well, if I ever record, I want to make sure that I record songs that I want to be singing years from now because whatever the fans want, I mean, that's what counts. They're the people going out and buying the tickets and buying the CDs and buying merchandise.
Yep.
And if that's what they want to hear, that's what I want to give them. So if I ever do have a hit record, I'll sing it till I take my final breath.
That's so neat to hear because it is. I've been to shows where, and I think, if they just toss that one song right in the middle and get it over with, or do it at the beginning, they don't have to encore with it, just get it out of the way. And I think sometimes people, I think if you ask some people about that, it's sometimes that they feel that people aren't listening to anything but that. So if they do it early in the set, then people don't have a reason to keep listening to their new music, and so then they want to save it towards the end, but then they don't like it at the end because they just don't like it. They don't want to build it up to be that big of a deal, So it's interesting. It's certainly, like you said, and you think about people maybe on Broadway or doing it. They have their own place in Branson and they have to do the same show every night. Every night they have to make it fresh, and it's like that's got to be a challenge, but at the same time, a blessing and a gift to be able to do that, to be able to just kind of cleanse yourself and say, okay, I'm going to do it again tonight. It's the same song, but it's a different audience every night, different audience. And this song means something different to them tonight?
Well, and it's even like telling jokes. Like Minnie Pearl would tell the same jokes week after week after week to sold out house to sold out house. And I watched it, house after house. And every time she told it, I don't know what she did, but she made it sound new every time she did it. And I still laughed. I knew what the punchline
Right,
was,
right.
and I'd be laughing before she got to it, you know? So that's just what it is. You got to keep some life in it as much as you possibly can. And you're right, man. A lot of those guys that really don't want to do their hits, that's a shame. I mean, that's what the people want, and you give the people what they want.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's no concern that if someone sees your show live, there's no worry about that, because I know that you're going to give them what they want, because you've committed to that on camera, that it's always going to be fresh, always.
Yep.
And that's great. That's a
It'll
great way
always.
to be. That's a great way to be.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Thanks.
You talked about rock and roll music for a second there. Any, or in the world, country or rock and roll, but any piano players that you just, as you were getting deeper and deeper into your craft, as you were learning more about the piano, that you really looked up to and their piano skills?
Well, there's a couple. I've always been a huge Ronnie Millsap fan. I remember meeting Ronnie Millsap. I was working in a local band in Peoria, and we opened for Ronnie Millsap. And I got to go backstage, and Ronnie's sitting back there in the dressing room by himself. And I walked back, and being 18 years old, I'm not really knowing what to say, but I said, Ronnie, I really like your outfit. And he said, really? I said, yeah. He said, what color is it? I said, maroon. He said, what color is maroon? Now, have you ever tried to describe a color to a blind man?
Yeah.
It made me think like that. But also, I was working at a club there in Peoria on a Sunday night, and they have what they call the Shower of Stars. They would have big shows and stuff. And I was up on stage, setting my piano up, and in through the back door comes Mickey Gilley.
Wow.
Now, I'm 18. Girls all get prettier at closing time is just wearing the charts out.
Uh-huh.
And he comes up to the stage. And I said, Mr. Gilley, here's your piano for this evening. He said, no, son. He said, I only play grand pianos. You're going to have to play piano. I'm 18. I'm playing for Mickey Gilley. I'm on top of the world, but at the same time, I am scared to death.
Uh-huh.
So all night long, I'm raking my fingers over the keys. Now, I've only been playing piano a couple of years. Well, by the time I got done, it looked like a homicide had taken place on my keyboard. There was blood everywhere where I just pulled the hide off my fingers trying to impress Mickey.
Yeah.
And we get done, and Mickey walks over to him. He puts his fingernail on it and runs it up the keys. He said, when you do that, you only use your fingernail. And I went, dude, I wish you'd have told me that a little earlier. I'm going to go buy some Band-Aids.
That is.
But yeah, Mickey Gilley was the big one. Yeah.
Wow, that's such a great story to just to be able to take advice like that from somebody that, you know, early in your career like that too, like you were just getting started, and how impressionable Mickey Gilley telling you, how giving you some advice at the piano. Wow, just unthinkable.
Very cool.
Unthinkable.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, before we wrap things up, I just thought that maybe, you know, I've like I said, I've heard that you really, and you've told so many amazing stories this morning, and I feel so, I don't want to hang up here, because I just want to hear maybe one or two more funny anecdotes about something. I'll try to point you in a direction, because I mean, I'm sure a flood of things would come to your mind, but I guess, you know, a time when something went haywire, maybe during a taping or something, and you had to, and the audience had to be brought back on board, and you saw it happen, or you know, or maybe like in your own career, a time when maybe just a technical difficulty, and you had to just keep them, you know, entertained while the guitars behind you plugged in again or something. What, that on the spot humor?
Well, you know what? I've done that where the PA or something would go out, and I always like told jokes. That's been a big go-to for me.
Yeah.
As far as anything major like that ever happened, and I can't remember right off the top of my head, but I do remember there's been times when they were having problems with their guitars, like you said, or something like that. Then I'll get out and I'll tell jokes or stories. But you know what? I just try to keep the mood light, no matter what it is. This, it is what it is. You do what you do, and so I don't have any problems with it. I can't. I'm having a hard time thinking of anything like that that's happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's a good thing. It means that usually the shows went pretty smoothly because there was always, things worked out. So I guess that's a good thing that there aren't too many stories like
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah, yeah. It is.
Um, Anytime, I mean, like the Mickey Gilley story certainly sounds like one of those moments where, being awestruck at being in that moment of greatness, and I think other people who are in the business, they become enamored with each other, and it's a mutual admiration society. Is there anybody that when they, even to this day in 2020, or go back to when you were doing those shows on a regular nightly basis at the Grand Ole Opry before you really started focusing on your own music solely, so back in those days, anybody that every time they walked on the stage, it was still, and they just tried to put you at ease, like, hey, hi Tim, how you doing? And you were it's just hard to, because you just realize where they had been and came from.
Well, I've got to say, some of my most fond memories were working with Mr. Acuff and Minnie Pearl. Roy Acuff was so good to me. I played piano at the Opry for probably about 8, 9 years, and he found out I could sing because I would sing in local nightclubs. That's what I was doing. When I wasn't working the Opry, I had to have a club job to sustain and everything. And I was singing on the Opry, and one night he had actually let me sing about probably 6 songs in a row. He always featured every member of his band whenever he did his show. And he had let me sing about 6 songs that day. And Bashful Brother Oswald, who worked with him, was his dobro player. He went up to Charlie Collins, who was Roy's guitar player, and he said, "What's he doing? He didn't even give Elvis an encore." Because when Elvis worked the Opry, he didn't get an encore. So I've sang 6 songs, so Oz just think I'm cutting into his time, So it was kind of funny. But I remember that afternoon, he said, "Tim Atwood, come in here and sit down next to me." So I went into his room and sat down. And he told me, he said, "I don't mean anything to the music business anymore. But if I did, you would have a recording contract."
Wow.
And I said, "Mr. Acuff, I don't care if I ever get one. The king of country music feels like I deserve a recording contract. That's all I need to know." That's how I had a really special relationship with him and Miss Minnie both. I really did have a great time. Uh, and like I said, there were other stars, but I guess because it was Roy Acuff. I mean, he's a king of country music.
Yeah.
And he's told me I deserved a recording contract. Oh my gosh, And I actually stayed home and raised my family and made sure that everybody was safe before I went out doing the solo thing. So I stayed at the Opry as long as I did, and then once my kids were grown and on their own and stuff, then I decided to do the solo career now, and I'm having a ball. I'm having more fun. I'm telling you, it's just I am truly blessed beyond belief.
There's so many more chapters to come in this great life of yours, and in your career, and I'm excited to see where you go next. Because it's just there's just so much that it's still so new and so exciting for you every day. I could just see the energy that you carry about this.
Yeah, yeah. I'm excited. I tell you what, I'm ready to get out of 2020. I'm like you. I'm kind of ready to get out of 2020 and get on to something new. I'm just ready to get back on the road. I'll be honest with you. I love my wife and everything, but being at the house 24/7 like this, it get a little tense every now.
Yeah. I've been home for the last several months too, and I can relate. In my relationship with my wife and my son, we've grown closer, and sometimes things can get a little bit, dicey. So, but overall, it's been really, really. I always look for that silver lining. My glass is always, half full. And there's definitely been a silver lining in this time, that even though there are those moments, where it can get a little tense, 99% of the time has been just wonderful, because I work 24/7, and to be home this time is something I may never be able to be home this much ever again, because I have to work.
You're right. Yeah, it's a blessing in disguise.
Yes, it is. So people who want to follow your career from a distance, I want to ask you one more thing. So when you do get back on the road, and we hope that day can happen, soon, do you travel the country? Do you travel around? I mean, I know the world, but I mean, like, do you do your shows? Are you planning to do touring behind this record once we get a moment to do that again?
I hope to. I'm really excited. I think we're going to the album comes out October the 16th, and which is my mom's birthday appropriately. That's very cool for me.
Yeah.
She
Yes.
passed away about 9 years ago, but I'm hoping to get out and promote it. I really am. I've been looking at the artwork that they've done on it and everything, and it looks good. And I've heard the roughs. I haven't heard a total mixed yet, but truly, by far, the best thing I've ever done, and I'm proud of it. And I hope everybody feels the same way I do, because I love every song on this CD. But yeah, I'm hoping to get back out to tour. I'm missing people so bad, and I got to be honest with you, I'm a hugger. I'm so used to people coming to shows and hugging them, and you can't do that. And I told Roxanne, when all of this is over, I'm gonna go to the grocery store and I'm just gonna pick out a complete stranger, just walk up and hug them. I miss that contact.
Yes. It's very difficult for those of us who feel that way to not be able to. You have to stop yourself. You have to say, oh, or if you do happen to, come in contact with a family member or a friend that you want to you want a hearty handshake or a hug, and you just want to, the whole bear hug situation has not been able to happen for a while. So
right.
We hope to get back to that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, if there's ever an East Peoria show that you could go do a homecoming show or something, I'm in my car in a heartbeat to come down there, and I'll travel. I mean, I just have to find out where you're playing, and I'll be there, because I really would love to see you perform live, and it would be so cool, even in your hometown where you grew up, to have it all come back full circle. If that ever happens, I would be there in a heartbeat. I'd walk there. That's 2.5 hours in the car, but I would walk, to be there. I'll take a car, but that's how much it would mean to me. So
that's nice. I would love to do that. I did play my hometown a couple years ago, and it was so cool to play that place and see all my high school friends and stuff. And so it was great. It really was. But I would love to go back, especially with a new product, and be able to go up there. And like I said, I think the music will speak for itself. It's not necessarily just me, but the music's good. So. But yeah, as soon as I find out something, I will let you know, because I expect you to be there.
I will be there with bells on, waiting to hear your show, and I hope that day happens soon. So, what's the best way for people who want to know more about your career to, I know we're in a world of, back when you started your career, we didn't have to worry about Twitter and Facebook and all these different media outlets, but it is, in a sense, it's nice in this time to have them all, because we can't communicate in person. So are there any specific places where people should go to learn more about your career, or to find out about, new albums and tours and appearances?
Well, you can go to timatwood.com, and it's got all the materials and stuff, and you can see pictures and read stories and that kind of things. Or Tim Atwood on Facebook. There's usually a lot of traffic in those areas. We don't do Twitter as much. Roxanne and I, matter of fact, Roxanne does the majority of all the media stuff. But timatwood.com, that's the best place I can tell you to go. And be on the lookout for that new CD. Oh, that's right. I want everybody to like my Facebook page. I want them to like me, to really like me. Sally Fields, never mind.
Yeah, no, I remember you. She was on. You like me. You really like me, right? I remember that. Oh, I remember.
That's it.
I do remember that point. And for some reason, at some point in my life, I thought that was Madonna who had said that, but then someone corrected me and said, no, it was Sally Field. Sally Field has been the one to say that, and I got that reference after a moment. It took me a quick moment, and I came back in. I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this that will be watching this interview. They'll be a little quicker than I am on the uptake, so that was good. That was very good.
Great.
But you should have been holding the Telly award in your hand and say, "You like me. You really like me." There you go. Let's try it one more time.
I want you to like me. Really like me.
It's so awesome. Tim, I thank you so much for your time this morning. I really sincerely have enjoyed our conversation, and I wish you all the best with your new record, October 16th.
October 16th.
Okay. That's the day after my wife's birthday, so I'll be able to remember that. October 16th. Okay. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate all that the stories you've shared, and I can't wait to share your stories with the people who will watch this video.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We've had some fun today, and I really appreciate it.